What's good, everybody, and welcome to Andromeda, where creators, innovators, collectors, and dummies tune into the world of NFTs with Cap. And today we have Jon Torrey with us on Andromeda, who is an NFT collector and writer. Jon, if you want to start off by telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your background, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody, I'm so pumped to be here. My name is Jon. I'm the author of startwithnfts.com. And I'm a freelance writer for 1:37 p.m. on the NFT topic. And I collect and trade NFTs. I've been in the community for a long time. I got involved in July. I'm also entrepreneurial. I started a business that I went to full time in the fall. So I'm trying to balance a lot of different things here, but I'm just learning so much from the NFT community. And I'm so pumped to see where it's going to go in the future.
Hell yeah. So, Jon, I want to start with about 2 years ago. You did a tweet and you said something along the lines of, you had anxiety, you were working a job that you didn't really like, and then you just started to hustle, and Gary Vee transformed your life. So I want to start with that story, and then I want to go how that led to where we are today.
Yeah, it's funny because this entry into NFTs has been 2 years in the making. So. Exactly right. I was just listening to a podcast where Gary Vee said, hey, everybody freaks out when they turn 30. And that was me. I'd been in the same role at the same company for 5 years. It had been a rocket ship growth. It was acquired twice. And I loved the first part of my career. And then I just hit a wall. My boss left. He started a company. Then my second boss left. He started a company. And I just felt lost. I mean, I felt trapped. Like I have never, and I'm going to put this on the record and say this to everybody because I hope it moves somebody else. Despite being at a startup and selling to a bigger company, my first year out of college, and getting promoted every 18 months at this company I was at, I've never been able to get a job offer outside of my existing company. Wow. I applied to Facebook. I applied to all these big names, and I just could never get the offer. And so as I approached 30, I started to have really bad anxiety. I was freaking out about what the future is going to be. And I felt absolutely trapped. And I just so happened to put on a podcast where Gary Vee was talking about garage sailing as a start today type of side hustle where you can learn business skills. And like, I was always interested in doing more. I just didn't know what. So I heard it and I said, bam, that's it. I'm going to go to a garage sale this weekend. So that was in March. So I went like a month later. But dude, I made $5,000 going to garage sales, but I learned how to operate. I learned how to operate. I learned how to get inventory, to price the inventory, to do all the economics behind it. I learned how to ship. I learned how to become more efficient with it.
Hell yeah.
So I did that. And that feeling in my gut of, hey, there's something you're doing or something you're not doing that you should be started to wane. Mm-hmm. And then Gary started talking about sports cards. But it's funny because I remember walking through the mall, and I'm a big Eagles fan. And I remember seeing a Carson Wentz autographed helmet. Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh man, I should buy that because the season before he was like MVP level. Eagles won the Super Bowl and I could flip it. Yeah. And then I heard Gary Vee talk about sports cards and I'm like, that's genius. I was already thinking in that lens with the garage sailing and I started to see more opportunity. I became more optimistic and I got into sports cards and I loved it. I was collecting, but I was also flipping. Yeah. I did some video interviews, but that's when my writing started. I'm like, man, I used to love blogging in high school. So I need to document the way that I'm approaching the card market. I ended up getting published on, a sports card investing website. And I kind of moved away from that because the investing part was a little bit touchy. But, the next year, as I made, I just got really good. I really learned this market. I did really well.
What was your biggest flip? Your biggest sports card flip?
The biggest sports card flip, and I wish I kept it, and you're going to hear that probably a lot, it was a 2008 Topps Chrome Refractor Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. It's actually, so after Kobe passed away, there was one card, I had seen it before. It's a beautiful image. They're guarding each other. Just iconic. Refractor, paid $450 for it. Because Kobe just passed away. And I'm like, I need to get this now before things go crazy. Yeah. Sent it away for grading. It took, I don't know, I think 9 months for it to get graded because PSA was super backed up. So I kind of forgot about it. Then it comes back in. And the hobby shop owner's like, hey man, like this card now is like a $6,000 card. Wow. And that was when my business, like my day job business was like starting to grow. And I knew I was going to leave and quit and go full time. And I asked him what he thought. He's like, you're doing your business. Like it's take the profit if it's going to better your life. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I did. And then the next month it went to 25,000.
Ah,
It happens, man. It happens.
I want to move forward a little bit. What was your first NFT? When did you get it? And let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the Curio Card Apple was the first NFT. I got it in late July. It's interesting because, over that 2-year period,
Yeah.
Really the main focus, I was building this business and home services. We work with contractors, connecting data to help them make better marketing decisions. Really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And around, March, April, May, I was really considering quitting my full-time job and going unpaid to my company to build it faster. So I had heard about NFTs in May from Gary. It made me sick to my stomach that I had to close the laptop and say, I can't pursue this right now. I'll have to come back to it later. Finally, by July, I kind of knew what the plans were. I knew when I'd be leaving. I knew what money was safe to take a gamble on NFTs.
Yeah.
And I came across Curio cards from Daniel Got Hits and, of course, Gary V. And coming from a sports card background, I just knew intuitively that there's going to be a lot of day trading and chase on the modern stuff. The same exact pattern happened with sports cards. And then people started to shift toward the vintage experience, like Hall of Fame veteran cards.
Yeah.
So when I saw Curio Card Apple, I'm like, this is the first art NFT project on Ethereum, predates CryptoPunks, and this is the first one out of the set that sold. So I got that. I got 2 Mona Lisas, and I got, one of the crypto graffiti Bitcoin.
Sick. Love it. Apple gang, baby. I want to dive deeper into Curio cards because your articles that you did about Curio cards helped me learn a lot about NFTs and helped me kind of navigate my way early in this market because my first NFTs were Curio cards, and I got that back in the hype of the whole Christie's August hype. That's when I first got into the market. And I actually want to pull it up. This article was so good, bro. I'm pretty sure is the one about CryptoPunks floor went down the Christie's auction, and will same happen for other NFT projects. So what I liked most about this article, you obviously explained why it went up and down, and I'm going to have the link of this article as well. But it was comparing it to sports card and how you did the comparison of Curio going to Christie's is like a quarterback winning a Super Bowl. And then you went on to explain how the price is probably going to dip because of the increased supply and people taking profits, and it all just like clicked for me. And it was so good to see you put that out, and then the exact thing kind of happened right after Christie's. Everybody just started dumping, because everybody just took profits. It was kind of like buy the rumor, sell the news event. So tell me a little bit more about this article, bro. What inspired it? Like, how do you kind of come up with these articles? Let's just talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, it's pattern recognition, straight up. So spending 2 years in sports cards, looking at this data, you start to see patterns form. And I always have admired that about Gary V, because he's been ahead of trends. It's why he's successful in business. It's why he's successful with people like you and I, because he listens, he observes. And it just made too much sense for me not to write about it. I knew intuitively the second that Christie's happens, you're going to see this decline. We saw it with CryptoPunks. You saw it. Actually, I don't know if you saw it with Bored Ape Yacht Club, because they're literally the only one that I've seen just kind of continually go up for 9 straight months. But I will never forget. I mean, I have a Patrick Mahomes rookie card, PSA 8. I'll never forget, like when he won the Super Bowl, prices went down. And that was the first time I learned of, like when a big event happens, people all have the same idea to go sell and take the profits.
I think it's important as well because that big event and people taking profits, like you said, also allowed for a whole bunch of new collectors and holders to come into the Curio family, which is extremely vital to where we want to be going forward. So I just think the psychology of how you wrote that and how that connected with so many of us is absolutely a game changer for me, at least, because that was I learned about it. And I was thinking, actually, I'm like, should I sell my Curio cards right now, right before Christie's, or should I wait?
Yeah.
And then I remember everybody in the group chat kind of, talking about, oh shit, they're dropping. And it fell all the way down to 0.29 Ethereum, which is crazy. It was like over 1 ETH, and it just kind of dropped all the way down. And had I just waited a little bit, I could have had double the cards I have now. So definitely an expensive lesson but a valuable lesson I learned for sure, bro. I appreciate that. That was good.
And I'm glad it helped. That's
Yeah.
why I recommend, because I have an Apple, right? I have one.
Yeah.
And when it went to 23 ETH, I'm like, I'm not going to sell. I know it's going to come down, but like, I'm just going to forget about it because it's a longer term hold. Buy two assets. Like if you can afford it, like whatever project it is, like I always recommend buy two. It's the
100%.
biggest mistake I didn't make, because if I had two, I could have played the game with one, kept the other. But I have one little anecdote I think is super important.
Yeah.
2014, a Tom Brady rookie card. Okay, so like one of his rarest, it's the playoff ticket. It's the ticket rookie cards that are just, they have a long history in the sets. Sold for $4,000 or $4,500. This is 2014. He'd already won 3 Super Bowls. Like he's already Tom Brady, right?
He's the guy.
That same card now, like this past year, sold for $1.5 million.
Wow.
The point I'm making there, it takes a long time,
Yeah.
in some cases, for people to see it. For Tom Brady, join the league, like the guy won 3 Super Bowls in 2014. Like this is one of his rarest cards, maybe 100 copies of it, $4,500.
Yeah.
And then the market finally caught on. And for me personally, I think that is how Curio is going to go. People are just going to need to see it over and over again. They're going to need to see modern projects kind of start to die. They get scared, and then Curio is just always in the conversation because it was that one of the first projects to break ground on what we see every day today in NFTs.
100%. And there's a lot I want to dive into. But the first thing I want to go is back to the Curio thing. Is what makes it special to me was, one, I was wanting to get into NFTs for a couple weeks before I actually made the move, but I just didn't know what to get. It was kind of like a feeling of anxiety. There was all these profiles.
Oh yeah.
There's all these projects. And then the Christie news hit, and I learned about this is the first art on Ethereum. It was a no-brainer for me. On top of that, it's kind of like a collectible item. But I made a tweet the other day, and I said, historical NFTs will be here well beyond our lifetime. They'll be relevant well beyond our lifetime. And that was another one that, like, are 3 generations from now, they'll still be talking about Curio cards and how relevant that is. I want to move forward also. You did an article about 50 famous card games that failed and 50 famous animated TV shows that failed. How do you see that correlating with the current NFT market as far as the trends, and why did they fail in modern projects today?
Yeah. So what triggered the 50 famous failed card games was an episode of Props and Drops, and Gary Vee said, "Hey, if a listener writes this article, I will tweet the heck out of it." And I had been writing about sports cards for 1:37 p.m. So I heard that on a Saturday. I was, with my friends actually, and I just wrote Saturday night into Sunday night into Monday. So when something hits you in the face, like go pursue it and go deep. So I wrote about it, and it was really shocking to me, because I just, again, the patterns are happening again. So if you look at like RoboCop, Terminator, like really good IP, really popular and culturally relevant at that time.
Yeah.
Who's heard of the Terminator card game?
Nobody.
Like nothing. But here the patterns. And I love that Gary Vee asked about this. So what would happen is you would have communities form around these cards and these trading card games. And so what would happen is you'd have Star Trek, you'd have conventions, you would have world leaders at playing this game. You'd have tournaments, like prizes. I mean, it was a big deal. People spent a lot of their time on it. And when you look at it today, you've got Pokemon cards, you've got Magic the Gathering, and Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
And that's it. Out of the 55 I saw of like really strong IP, really culturally relevant, they don't exist anymore.
And but why is that though?
I think that that's a really good question, because I'm tying this back to Gary again. He just said on the Full Send podcast, 98% of NFT projects are going to fail, but they don't have to. Why? Because of the operators. So when I went through that article, there's a lot of different speculation and reason for why some of these failed.
Yeah.
Some of them, it's pretty clear. I don't remember all 55 off the top of my head, but there were a few in there where it was such a niche audience, it just died out because of lack of demand.
Wow.
Star Trek was one of them where the demand revived the project and another company took it on, but it was the companies operating the games, printing the cards, doing that. They either they were bought out and it was too small of a niche and the new company didn't want to do it, or they just moved on to something else.
Yeah.
Because Terminator was really popular in the late 80s and when the card game came out. But is any company really going to continue to try to create demand for that card brand? Are they going to put on tournaments? Are they going to find a way to really draw people in? Are they going to design 100%. The game? And there were clearly cash grabs. So these games to really suck in an audience. And again, this is part of the creating demand, but I think part of it is the operating. It's like being able to understand, like people who play Magic the Gathering love the design dynamic of the actual game. When people are releasing RoboCop and Terminator, it's, hey, we have really good IP. Let's throw this into the mix because it's going to increase our quarterly bottom line by 3%. Whereas Magic the Gathering was designed by a really smart card game designer who had experience doing it. And I think that's what you're left with is the projects that cultural relevance, there's a demand, but there was just smart design in the gameplay. Look at Pokemon in the Game Boy game. If we didn't have that Game Boy game, would we care as much about Pokemon? Probably not.
No.
You know, they executed that. Like they saw like this could fit in this scenario and they executed on it.
Imagine when Pokemon drops the NFT collection. That shit would be crazy.
It's going to be wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So what else are you collecting and are you still into sports card? Are you kind of focused on curio only? Like what else are you collecting right now?
Yeah. So I love curio. I'm only left with one Apple, but I'll tell you what, that's going to change, in the future. I have to be really careful. I'm running a business as my day job. Like I really do have to be careful. So everybody listening, don't spend money you can't afford to lose. I'm going to tell you what I'm collecting. I'm not going to call it alpha because I don't like that, but I'm going to tell you some people I really like. So on my website, I do project breakdowns, and I'm very fortunate that I dig really deep on these projects. But a message to some people like me, like I don't like to day trade. I think there's too volatile, and I literally, again, I have to worry about a business that I'm trying to grow.
100%.
But I had a skill set as a writer, and you have a skill set as a podcaster, right? And video content. There's a huge need in this market for people to find what their skills are and double down on it. We're early. My blog is going to hit 100,000 views in less than 6 months.
Wow.
Because the space is new and I wrote good content. That's what I'm good at. So double down on that.
Hell yeah.
So if you're sitting listening, you're like, man, I can't afford Curio. I can't afford the other projects that Jon's about to talk about. Think about what your skills are and what you like to do, because there's an entire new economy being created. I saw this in the web too. I was at a social media startup back in 2011. It was about getting likes to your Facebook business page. Everybody was starting to become a social media expert because you could do it really quickly. For people who double down on their skill set and do it well, you will have traction in the long term. And I'm going to put real effort into startwithnfts.com because that's my skill and it's catching an audience. Like you can be early to that.
100%.
So when Gary V's book games launched, and that's one I really like, I think it's affordable. Games can be played forever. Gary is a master at creating demand, but bringing value to his holders. That's a really affordable one. And that's what I'm really focused on right now. But I wrote 2 or 3 articles explaining my strategy and what I'm going to do. I did that first before buying because I know that's where my skill set is. And I know that I can create value for both myself and my readers by pursuing my skill set. So that's one thing. If you're in this, you're intimidated, you can't afford it. Like, can you build a data tool? Can you create content? Can you go be a community mod? There's tons of opportunity for that, that career side. Now, Curio, I love. Like I'm already nostalgic for when I first bought it in, July and August, and the community that's there. I think they're really awesome. My biggest holding besides Gary V's book games, I've got 4. I'll get more, nothing crazy, is photography by Chi Modu.
Okay.
So I wrote a detailed article about his story. And when I learned it.
Is he on OpenSea?
He's on OpenSea.
Yep. All right, let's pull him up.
Pull him up. Because this is one I can't wrap my mind around how there hasn't been more attention on it. For me, it's that floor price of 0.074 is absolutely beyond mind blowing that less than 1 ETH has been traded on Chime and Chi, excuse me. Look, I know everybody's excited about utility. And I really do appreciate that. They're excited about utility the same way they're excited about the modern, basketball players winning a championship. Some people are going to do it really well. The top 2 or 3, Gary V is the one where I'm like, that's a sure bet. The other ones, I just haven't dug enough. I'm not sure. They'll do really, really well. But the other people who promise X, Y, Z that don't do well, I think people get burned. And I think people start to say, you know what, I'm okay with this collector avenue of something like a curio because it's going to be relevant, because it's always going to be part of the story.
Yeah.
And to me, so Chi, legendary photographer. Anybody listening, go Google his name, and it will come up in multiple interviews, publications. The guy is a legend, and he documented the golden age of hip hop, the 1990s, through photography. But the interesting thing at that time is that the photos themselves weren't that valuable, to the companies that would pay Chi to do it, or the artists that would pay Chi. So he had the copyrights to this library of photographs.
Wow.
That he took of like legendary people, a lot of whom have passed away. And he was able to catch one of the most famous pictures of Tupac with a cigarette smoke or laughing and drinking a beer. Think about Tupac. You're seeing a picture of him and he's laughing and having fun. Chi was able to do that because he empathized with the artists he was photographing. He became one of them.
Yeah.
And he passed away earlier this year.
Wow.
And last year. I forgot. We're in 2022 now.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. But he minted his photography as NFTs, documenting hip hop culture that permeates our lives every day. One of the guys, and he was the first to do it. If you're looking to collect, I think that's a fun one. I
think that's a real interesting story. And the NFT market is very interesting. And I like how you make the comparison of like the new hype. It's all because me and my boys, we were just having a conversation last night about John Morant winning a ring this year. And the argument was, will they beat the Warriors in the playoffs? And I'm like, no, they're not going to beat the Warriors. But he's new, he's hyped, and it's like now that you make that analogy, I kind of look at that with the new projects as compared to people aren't really doing enough research. When Gary says do the 10 hours or 50 hours, I think it's more so what is the most hype thing that I could get into and flip and make some quick money and get out. So I think a project like that requires a lot of thought that a lot of people aren't putting into the space as of yet. But
you're spot on.
Definitely really, really cool project. I want to know what actually inspires your writing, because I think that's a big part of how you get your research done. Like, how do you kind of put that whole vision together?
That's a good question, because sometimes I'm amazed, like, wow, I really just did that. Yeah. I think a lot of it's practice, because I've been writing about sports cards. And then at that moment with sports cards, I remember looking back thinking, why did I not start my own blog? And I wasn't about to let that happen again. And I think when 1:37 p.m., huge shout out to them. They know I have a blog about NFTs. They let me write for them, and they support me in a lot of ways. I cold submitted 4 articles to them back in February of last year because I just felt compelled. I felt connected to the work. Nothing else mattered. I spent 8 hours on a Sunday in February, and I was in Florida at the time, writing 4 articles with no promise of return.
Yeah.
They got back to me and they said, hey, these are awesome. And it was a 3-month process of me following up. I had to write another one. I just stayed on them. And they said, these are great. We'd love for you to write for us. And then I started to get good at it. And I started the pattern recognition. I'm like, wow, I'm good at this. This is fun. And then as I was doing my own research in NFTs, I thought, wow, I can document the history of curio cards for people, but also leave my legacy on this paradigm shifting event. I want in 100 years, someone to point at my article and say, yeah, this person, he was on it. Here's like a really detailed history. And I want all these citations and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think taking that, I have plans to monetize the site, right? But I haven't done that in the first 6 months.
Mm.
And I just wanted to connect with my writing. It helps when Gary's retweeting a bunch of my stuff. And like, that is a huge confidence booster for me. But there's so many people that I'm helping and bringing value. But I want people to connect to what this really is going to be. And I'm early and I'm competitive and I want to be the best that's out there at bringing the value. I'm a one person, and I just actually, Ezra, who's been in Curio Cards has joined me in this venture and he's writing some articles. But what's out there is crap. Like what I've seen mostly is that websites, and some people have just straight up stolen the content that I've had.
Yeah.
Which whatever. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. And there's some new like the drop is really good. Like there are some people. I don't mean that everything is, but I just want to give people good information. That's not someone who, like, I own those Chimo dues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy them if you don't believe in it. I'm not hyping, right? But a lot of people are just pump stuff. And I just wanted to be a resource and help those artists get exposure and just connect with people and network.
Yeah, love it. And bro, I do think you're talented, super talented. You helped me in
Thanks,
my
man.
in my learning curve in this NFT space. Like I kid you not, I read that Christie's Curio article at least a minimum of 10 times. I have that article bookmarked because I always go back.
Oh my God.
I literally have it bookmarked because it's so relevant into how I treat every project now moving forward. It's now the best time to buy. Yeah. Like, be patient. For example, with the crypto skulls that just came out. Yes. It was one of those super hyped. Let me wait a little bit, but it's all because of little learning curves that I got from early on. And it started with your articles, bro. So I appreciate that. Any last words you want to leave the audience with?
Help each other out. Connect with people. This is going to be a new economy. If you're stuck in a job you hate, you want something new. I've made friends, virtual friends through this, new business ventures. Start your blog, reach out to me. If you want to get in touch with me, I know you're going to put my Twitter handle. Like we can create this together. You talk about decentralization. Okay. Forget about all that stuff. Think about the community and the people, the skill sets that we have. You invited me on this podcast, right? And help promote each other and help each other find our own niche in this space. And it is big enough for everybody to win.
That's
what I got.
Love that. Everybody check out Jon. I'm going to have that Curio Card article linked below. Phenomenal writer. Helped me learn a lot about just the market and NFTs. But with that being said, Andromeda out.